So today we're going to talk about ritual, which is the third in our series on inhabiting and creating sacred spaces. Last week we talked about creating sacred spaces. So if you missed that one, go back to that. And then the first episode was on being with the natural world, which was, I thought, a really good one. So you can catch those recorded episodes on my Substack or on Julia's Substack, both of them. They're posted there. So today we are going to talk ritual a little bit. And I picked this topic and then I laughed at myself for picking it because I wouldn't call myself a person who's real big on ritual. Um, I'm going to pause though for a second and say that we really love to have people comment. We feel like this is as much a dialogue between you guys and us as it is between the two of us. So please, if we say something that interests you, if we say something, if you've got a question or comment about anything, please.
Or even a disagreement.
Yeah.
Lay it on us.
Take it. We can take it. Anyway, please do that. Please comment. Anyway, back to myself and my sort of allergy to ritual. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and the Southern Baptists were not big on ritual. We did have communion, and that was about it. And I don't know if that's part of why I just maybe I didn't have a lot of experience as a child with ritual, and it always felt a little too much to me. So I was interested. It was curious that I came up with this topic. And we are going to talk about what we think ritual is, what its importance is, and where we find it in our lives. Um, in fact, if you want, you can think about what you think any of those, your answers to any of those questions and put that in the comments. I mean, I looked up the word ritual in the dictionary as preparation for this discussion, and it runs the gamut anywhere between ceremony, religious connotations to something you do regularly. Anything you do regularly. So there's a huge continuum of, at least in the dictionary, of what we would consider a ritual. And I think for me, I'm trying to figure out where I am on that continuum. I kind of I think I'm leaning much more toward the something you do regularly than the ceremony or the religious expression. That's definitely probably where I'm at. I'm down here, wherever that is. Go ahead, Julia. Go ahead.
Apologize. I think I hear the inspector coming in my house. So I'm going to pop out and make sure my dog is okay. And I will be right back. And I apologize for this.
Fine, do it. Julia is having work done in her house. And so it's a bit of a, well, if anybody's had that done, you know what that's. All right. So what I was going to say is I kind of tend to slide toward the habit or the something I do every day. And ritual in my life has kind of come in through the back door. I think if it came in through the front door, I would be freaked out by it. There's something about having to do something all the time or at a certain time that is really scary to me. She's back. I'm talking about how ritual kind of came in the back door for me, I think, because I think if it had come in through the front door, I would have freaked out. Like, I don't like to feel trapped by having to do something at a certain time every day or having some sort of structure sort of placed on me. But if it comes in the back way, like, for example, I need to find a way to deal with the mental and physical energy that swirls around in me all the time. So I swim or I lift weights or, on a regular basis because I need a way to deal with all of that. That for me has become a ritual, but it's not in the way that somebody says, okay, you need to do this, you know, every Monday at 10 o'clock. Um, it's just different. So I think in my life, any rituals that I have um, adopted have come in kind of on the sly underneath. And that tends to work better for me. And um, what also works better is space to allow those things to change, to flow in, to flow out, to not be this thing that I have to do from now until whenever it is that I die. So those are my initial thoughts on what ritual is for me. It's some kind of sly structure that allows me um, to be with myself. It holds me in some way, but not in a vice. Not um, yeah, holds me gently, I guess. Um, and so I want to know a little bit about what you guys think. And Andrew just said something. And then what also Julia, what you think about ritual. And is ritual the same as practice? Yeah, don't know. We say that a lot here. That is such a good question. I was thinking about what we were talking about last week with sacred spaces, because sometimes rituals create sacred spaces. And I thought, okay, so we're just dealing with so much overlap here, as we do often in this podcast. Um, yeah, what's the difference between ritual and practice? I would love to know what you guys think. Um, Emily, this is Becky. Emily, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church as well. It has taken me many years to shed my anti ritual bias. I finally have an appreciation for the value of ritual. Like you, I'm still only comfortable with low key. Great topic. Well, I appreciate that, Becky, that you have a similar experience. Yeah, there's something about that particular environment where they really, really, um, they were very negative about ritual. So anyway, go ahead.
So this is really interesting to me. So the ritual you described, like swimming, is a very secular
Yeah.
habit, right? It's a structure, right? But it's secular for you and has to do with mental health and physical benefits, right? Devoid of anything liminal, which is so interesting for you.
No. It can't be. No, thank you for saying that, because it isn't. And I think maybe this is where well, I don't know. I was going to say that's maybe where practice comes in. I mean, I would call swimming a kind of spiritual practice for me.
Mm.
And I would also call it a ritual. Uh, I tend to think, because when I swim, things get quiet. They get still enough that I can be, you know, with myself. It moves energy through, it moves it out. And that is in and of itself a good thing for my health, my physical health, my mental health. But there's something that it does for me spiritually, um, as well, by allowing me to just kind of calm down, be with. It's meditative.
Mhm.
And not just in the good for your brain sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many interesting things that you're bringing up. One, is an idea that I've been sort of trying to wrap my head around, is the relationship between our mental self, our mind, our emotions, and our physical self, and how they meet in the subtle body. And I've been doing some reading about how different traditions define subtle body, but often it's that energetic connection between the physical and the emotional, right? And that bridge. And it's exactly what you're referring to, that the physical motion of swimming can connect through the subtle body to an emotional state of peace or calm, right? So
Yeah.
very interesting from that standpoint.
Uh,
Steve has a comment, which I will get to in a moment, because the other thing that's curious, as I was thinking about Becky's comment and yours, I'm curious about this history in the Southern Baptist Church and whether or not the tension around ritual comes because Southern Baptists didn't believe in ritual, or because you want to throw away that Southern Baptist history?
mm,
Like, is it because you just never had an association with it because they didn't really do it? Or is it because you just want nothing that even vaguely smells of religion or Southern Baptist religion?
yeah.
So take those, and then we're going to get to Steve, because Steve just made a comment, and I'm curious about that as well.
Yeah. Well, no, ritual was, I mean, in my experience in the Southern Baptist Church, ritual was something that you stayed away from because it was Catholic. Steve,
Okay. Okay.
Catholics were, according to the Southern Baptists, not in a good space. And Catholics felt that way about the Southern Baptists. So you get that kind of ingrained in you. Um, I think I am also, though, on top of that, I just do not like to be confined or told what to do, or so there's definitely some of my own, personality and my own history I absolutely in my attitude toward ritual, for sure. So that's a short answer to your question. And then Steve says, growing up Catholic, I found rituals to be mindless and boringly repetitive. Deconstructing rituals, finding the meaning behind the repetitiveness brings the needed meaning. Okay, repetitive. Yes. That's interesting because Steve and I came at it, in this completely opposite direction. And here we are in the middle. Um, so it sounds like, Steve, you had all the rituals, but they were just so boring. You were just kind of, I'm thinking about the piece that Steve wrote about um, the having, I think, the Virgin Mary statue in his house for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how they had to say various things to the statue every day, and it was just, that's a hysterical piece. Anyway, Steve also writes a Substack. But then you had to deconstruct the rituals to get to the meat, so to speak. And I had to kind of work my way toward the rituals and figure out what was my relationship with them. Um, Andrew says Plymouth Brethren hated ritual. Obviously a Catholic thing, but they actually had a lot of it. We always did things the same way. Yes. And I could say that for the Southern Baptists too. There was, yes, we hate ritual, but we have our own, and our own aren't called that. They're called something else. Becky, the consciousness around ritual was something that deterred from keeping your nose to the spiritual grindstone. Okay. It was also linked to valuing bare essentials. Yes. Which is very much that.
So, it's interesting because this idea of repetitive ritual, mindless ritual, I 100% get that. And mostly, if I'm thinking of formal ritual, that's my reaction, right? But I'm thinking about it in terms of when I see people do physical movement, right? There, and we're going to talk in memes here because there's a million exceptions, right? But there's a kind of movement where you go to the gym and you lift your weights and you count your reps and you're watching the news on the TV monitor. Maybe you got something and you're just like doing this. And then you go home, you're like, yeah, I did movement. I'm getting stronger, right? There's another kind of movement where you are really centered and grounded. And you do from the outside, it looks exactly the same, right? You're doing the same movement, but you're doing it from this internal place of embodiment. And then this is curious to me. You're still growing stronger, but often the physical effect in your body and in your life is different. And when I say that is I work with people who have chronic pain and chronic issues, and often they have done every kind of PT available. They have gone to personal trainers. They've watched YouTube videos. They've tried to heal their body in all the ways. And then when they can do a more aware embodied movement, they can access a kind of benefit or effect that they just don't when you're just doing it from the outside, right? And so what this has to do with ritual is what I'm hearing in these comments is that there's the ritual, which is the Peregrine mindless, like if you're the Catholic and like there's a million things. You're kneeling, you're standing, you're kneeling, you're standing, like all the things, right? If you're doing that from the outside, you don't feel the meaning, right?
Right.
But there's another quality, and I'm saying this with hesitation because these kind of formal religious rituals are just really hard for me to access, really hard for me to relate to. But if you do it from the inside, where there's a kind of internal embodied meaning for you, then suddenly it can resonate in a non-verbal, non-conceptual way.
Yeah.
And I did a retreat earlier this fall, and one of the things was mudras, right? And you had to do these hand motions, and there were like 8 in a row, and you did these very hand motions. And then I learned it for the first time, but the hand motions were symbolic. And there was something about doing them. It was very much ritualistic as to do these hand motions, but they really resonated for me in a way that other religious movement hasn't been able to reach me.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear from people that when you have ritual that for whatever reason has a meaning where you can do it like from a deeper place, how your relationship with ritual shifts. That makes sense?
That's such a good question. And I think your comments really get at the heart, of yeah, there's that kind of undefined space where you're with whatever it is, in a way, in a different way. I mean, Steve said absolutely, and ironically, I am now digging deeper and deeper into the foundations of Catholic ritual. I think maybe that's, Steve, kind of what Julia was talking about. As a child, it was boring and you were just like, oh my God, can I just get out of here? Um, but now you're interacting with those rituals in ways that are new and much deeper. And then Andrew says, oh yes, Julia, our beliefs were not belief. They were true.
Interesting.
That's
interesting.
Love that,
Drew.
I love that distinction. Our rituals were just doing what the Bible said. But maybe that was the intentionality. Maybe it was all the language thing. Maybe physical practice becomes ritual, useful ritual, when I give it some intentionality. Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful comment, Andrew. And I think that's what Julia is getting at here, is this intention around what we're doing. And yeah, our beliefs were not beliefs, they were true.
Yeah.
This thing up here, it's just this that you try to get down here somehow, which for me doesn't work very well. Which I think is why ritual, as I experienced it, or have thought of it in the past, is this thing up here that I see as something that can trap me. But when it comes in through the back door, you know, when it comes in through belief or through intentionality, then it's then it means something.
I think that there can be problems. So a lot of our discussion today is centered around these very formal kind of rituals through a religion, which is a really broad umbrella. And the iconography, even when we sort of in our head understand what the ritual is, it's not our iconography for a ritual,
Mm.
right? So, um, I don't know Southern Baptist rituals, Catholic rituals, um, I don't know, the host, right? This is a body of Christ and the blah, 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 right? Right. All the ritual of taking that intellectually, I think probably most people in a Catholic church know intellectually what that's supposed to symbolize.
Mm.
But honestly, if you were talking about taking in the spiritual lessons into yourself, into your heart, I don't know how many people would actually eat a,
Mm.
a piece of cracker as a symbol of that. I mean, in a certain way, you could say, well, that kind of is a good symbol, right? You're taking it in. But
Yeah.
you're in the Catholic Church, you've always done it, you don't think about it too much. And so it's not your symbol.
Mm.
And so, um, oh, bye, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
Uh,
Steve just said he has to run, and it sort of caught my eye. My apologies. So, what I'm wondering also is when we can either find or create a ritual that contains our symbolism, the symbolism that really we can know without having to think about it, that we can then connect on a different level. And, I feel like some of these stories about starting in some practice when we were kids and it's meaningless and it's boring and we go through it and then we have these sort of reactions that we haven't really created a relationship with those symbols for the symbology of that ritual.
mhm. Yeah.
And I know that a lot of the rituals and ceremonies, so for me, the ritual, it does have that habitual pattern where you're doing it repeatedly and the repetition can give it meaning. The repetition can also give structure that for me helps me land. I mean, I'm a little like you, Emily. I'm like always doing new things. I don't want to be pinned down. Let me fly. My wings need to be free, right? But sometimes that habitual quality of ritual anchors me, right? And I was lucky enough to find the ceremonial aspect of ritual as an adult. And I was then able to find things that spoke to me easily. I didn't have to go back and deconstruct a childhood ritual and try and make peace with that and understand it deeper. Like I came into it more where you can like choose. And I wonder how much of that would change things for people to find something where the symbolism is just more innate,
Mhm.
right? It's something you kind of just makes sense to you without having to work quite so hard at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good kind of thought for our takeaway here. Um, because everybody has a mix of this in their lives, in some way or the other. And I think finding, or at least for me, finding the authentic, which is another word that gets used all the time. Oh, like finding what is yours, what belongs to you, you know, um, is a mix of working with that background and being with yourself and finding what really anchors you and holds you. And here we're defining, the importance of ritual here a little bit when I say that. Um, and that's a work of um of the of being with yourself, you know. Um, Andrew says religious people think that practice is good because of their cognitive belief stuff. It's possibly the other way around. The embodied comes first. It generates stories and meaning. Yeah. And then Becky says, great points, Julia. Yeah. I mean, there's something about it coming up, you know, that again, the embodied coming up through here and allowing that to happen and then interact with all the other stuff you've got going on from your, you know, whatever church you were in or weren't in or, whatever systems. Um, there's something about the need to do that to find what works for you and then allow it to change as you change. Yeah. Julia, do you have your thoughts?
Well, of course.
Oh,
I have a million thoughts, and we are at
we're
the half hour. So, like we say every single week, we could keep going on this for so long, right? Because it's so interesting
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
how these things play in our lives. And we're finding over time is that we circle back to a lot of these topics in new ways. So no doubt we'll kind of come back to this in some future episode and be able to go deeper because it's a spiral, right? You circle and each time it's the same, but it's different, you know?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
So Julia, what are we doing next week?
And that week is the 22nd. So it's very solstice-y. I think the 21st is the official solstice this year, but it is the dark time. And our topic is going to be stillness and movement and really about the unification of the two. So I think in our movement practices, we think of them as separate. We sit on a cushion or we go swimming. Right. And so then the question is, how can we weave both so that it is unified, it is embodied, and stillness and movement are one?
Mm.
That's our topic.
It's a good one. It's a good one. All right. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for all wonderful comments.
Yes.
And we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
All right.
Bye bye.